Hello and welcome back to the Old Soul Millennial channel. In today's video I'd like to teach you how to install vinyl lattice underneath a deck, front porch, or something of that nature. Now if you take a look at the deck behind me, you can see that the lattice is all wavy, it's falling apart, and it's just time to replace it. Now this lattice would have lasted much longer if the previous installers had done a proper job of installing that, which I will go over in today's video. But first things first, I'm going to take the camera off the tripod. Let's take a look underneath the deck and see why this lattice is failing. First thing I want you to pay attention to is look at the waves in the lattice. Why is that happening, I wonder? Hey, you gonna come in here and give me a hand? Taking a look at how they fastened this lattice to the deck here, it's no wonder why it's failing. So in some areas I see that they only used pins, which I don't know, perhaps those are finish nails. But then if I go a little bit further down, it's like, alright, so they used some screws. But look at where they put the screws. They put the screws right on the top, and they blew out here and here. You can see that. They didn't use enough screws, and they used the wrong type of screws. They used drywall screws, as where with an outdoor application, you want a fastener that's not going to corrode, and drywall screws are not the proper fastener. In today's video, we're going to be using stainless steel truss screws. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but I mean, this is just ready to come down. Absolutely terrible install. I have a feeling we're not going to need any special tools to really remove this stuff. Oh, what? What the hell? What the hell? This is unbelievable. So next thing I need to figure out is where I'm going to attach the lattice to, and I'm going to attach my lattice to the backside lip of this fascia board. And this is, I don't know if it's like a vinyl or whatever it is, but this is the stuff that won't rot, so it's going to get secured right onto this lip right here. The only issue is whoever installed these fascia boards used finish nails, and I'm a little bit worried that they're not weather resistant, as well as I'm a little bit worried about them supporting the weight of the fascia and the lattice. So I just came back from Lowe's and I got these stainless steel trim screws. These are nice because they have a really small head. I've actually used these before to re-secure some of these engineered deck boards. So these are great little fasteners. They're expensive. They're about $10 a carton, but you know, it's like, let's do the job once, let's do it right. So these screws, I'm going to install them every 12 inches. I'm going to pre-drill a hole, and we're only going to be doing the top side here. Alright, now that we have these fascia panels securely fastened to the deck rim joist, what we need to do now is we need to start cutting these lattice panels. Now in my case, thankfully, it's going to be pretty easy because the height of the deck is pretty even with the ground, pretty much all the way around the deck. Off camera a moment ago, I took some measurements from the bottom of the fascia to the level of the ground, and for the most part it was about 32 inches. It was high and low in a couple spots, but I have some shovels and we can adjust the grade if we need. So I'm going to cut these panels at 32.5 inches. That other half inch is going to give me some meat to fasten these lattice panels to the back underside of the fascia boards here. And another thing you want to pay attention to with these lattice panels is the finished edges, right? So this is this is a full panel, so there's finished edges all the way around this panel. Now, this side of the deck faces the front lawn, and this corner is going to be very visible. So I want this finished edge right on the corner. You don't want to have a cut on a corner if you can avoid it. And also, I want the finished edge right on the ground, because where we need to make the cut horizontally on this panel, we can hide that when we fasten that to the underside of the fascia. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's set this up, we'll get this cut, and then we'll start installing these panels. Alright, so I have my lattice panel cut to the proper height, and I've also pre-drilled the holes at the top of the panel, and remember, this is going to get fastened to the back underside of that fascia. These are the fasteners I'm going to be using. These are 3/4 inch stainless steel truss fasteners. Always go with stainless when you're outdoors if you can. And the nice thing about these truss screws is they have that nice wide flange, so there's much less likely chance that these are going to rip out. I'm definitely over-engineering this, but I'd rather over-engineer it than under-engineer it. Another really important tip that I have is when you're pre-drilling the holes, make sure that they are wider than the screws. Make sure that the screws move around a little bit in those holes, because when the sun beats down on this lattice, it's going to expand, and then when it cools down, it's going to contract a little bit. So by drilling oversized holes, it allows the panels to expand and contract a little bit. And that's really important. That's a mistake a lot of people make, because if you don't allow for that expansion and contraction, when it gets really hot, the sun's on these panels, they will bow out or bend a little bit. So just plan ahead for that. So let's take this panel and start installing it on the underside of the deck. Now that's a real snug fit. I'm not worried about it because it's no big deal to take a shovel and remove a little bit of material to lower the grade a little bit. Now let's go to the underside of the deck and I'll show you how I fasten these. Pretty straightforward. All right, now we're gonna start in this corner because this is the corner everybody's gonna look at. So what I do, I bring the lattice right to this corner, but then I back it off maybe like a 1/4 inch. And again, that allows for that expansion and contraction, right? You want this to have some room to expand. So the other tip that I have is when you're installing the fasteners into whatever you're installing them into, in this case, the fascia boards, the back side of the fascia, when you screw these down, don't make them tight. Just get them started, get them in, but don't allow that flange to tighten up against the lattice, right? You want it spaced off like a 1/2 millimeter, because that'll allow this to move back and forth. You see we have a little bit of movement right there, and that's what you want. Again, allow for that expansion and contraction. So now I'm gonna go down along the length of this lattice, install these fasteners, just like I showed you, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, so I have this finished panel right here. Initially, I was gonna leave this finished edge and just butt up another finished edge to it, and I suppose that would look okay. I'm not a huge fan of it though, because you have these squares and then you have these rectangles, and it just doesn't look right to me. So my new plan, I'm going to cut off the rectangles here. I'm going to cut off this finished edge right here at this long vertical piece. I'm going to cut off the finished edge on this piece too. Well, this isn't the right cut, but you'll understand what I'm saying here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to overlap these, line up the squares, something like that, and then we'll just put a couple loose fitting screws in here. I think that'll be the cleanest look, so let's go with that. All right, I have this panel cut in between the full-size panel that we had and the house, and as you can see, took a little time to get this right, but I think this is such a cleaner look when you have these overlapping and the squares lining up like that. I definitely think that's the way to go. Now to keep these corners together, I'm just using what was here. These are 1x1s. I mean, now I can kind of understand why they left the 4x4s free hanging, because the rim joists are right here. I mean, it wouldn't have taken much to really notch it out and make it look nice, but I think these 1x1s will do the job just fine. Alright, we're nearing completion on this project, and something I wanted to incorporate into this lattice is an access hatch. Something that if I need to go under the deck and remove leaves, I have a way of easily going underneath the deck. I did buy some stainless steel hardware, some stainless steel hinges, as well as latches. I'm going to install them momentarily. but I need to finish cutting out this access panel. And with that, I'm going to continue using my skill saw. This is where it gets a little bit dangerous because you have to lift up this guard, and definitely takes some skill. That's why they call it a skill saw, right? Alright, you can see the outline of this access hatch that I cut out, and I have 3 stainless steel hinges at the top of this gate. I wish I had smaller screws, but I'm just going to use the 3/4 inch truss screws that I have. So let's go ahead and fasten down these hinges. Alright, I have the hinges installed at the top of this access door. Now for the latches. Alright, we're on the final little sliver here. Just gotta drill this, screw it on. That should just about wrap up this job. Alright, I just finished up this lattice project, and I'd say it came out quite beautifully. My only small critique, if you look at the bottom of the panels, they're a little bit wavy, and I was kind of expecting that. These panels have been sitting on the side of my shed for about a year now, so I was expecting them to be a little bit distorted, but that's an extremely easy fix. All I need to do is go through that little access hatch that I made and just screw on a couple 1x1 strips along the bottom edges of the panels, and that'll straighten them out. But I don't know. I think the results speak for themselves. I will say, though, that I'm really happy about overlapping the panels. I think that came out much cleaner than trying to use the finish edges, which I'll do an overlay right now just to show you kind of what it looks like. But I think that looks really clean, and overall, I'm really happy with the results. So anyway, thanks for watching. As always, I will catch you on the next one.